The Horn of Africa and the Arabian Gulf have a long shared history of engagement. And with the latter's economic rise in the 1970s, its need for cheap labor and foodstuffs was met by the Horn. This relationship has stayed lopsided, benefiting the Gulf by a far greater proportion. And now the need for economic diversification and security have taken various alliances and rifts in the Middle East and carved them into the Horn of Africa. With the advent of the Arab Spring and the ostensible victories of various Islamist forces, the Gulf monarchies of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates fell into a siege mentality. This was further exacerbated when the Yemeni civil war broke out, and Iran gained a foothold in Saudi Arabia's backyard thanks to its support for the Houthi rebels. But it isn't only the Iranian-Saudi Arabia rivalry that has been exported to the Horn. The Gulf split of 2017, where Egypt, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE and Bahrain blockaded Qatar for their support of Islamist activity in concert with Turkey, forced the weaker of the Horn countries to pick sides. With an Iranian threat east and west of the Gulf, and potential choke points at both Bab el-Mandeb Straits and the Strait of Hormuz, maneuvering into the Horn took on a new urgency to lock down food security, economic diversity, and geopolitical considerations. Saudi Arabia's primary goal in the Horn was preventing Iran from establishing its own sphere there. Making sure Sudan didn't fall further into Iran's orbit was key to the Saudis. Both countries shared an international pariah status and healthy relations. And with Sudan's important role in the Red Sea and Nile Basin areas, Saudi couldn't allow this alliance to root itself further. They were able to nudge Sudan away from Iran, and by 2015, thousands of Sudanese were serving on the ground in Yemen against the Iranian-backed Houthis. After the fall of Bashir, both Saudi and the UAE pledged $3 billion to the Transitional Military Council to boost its status in the negotiating process and to solidify its position as the preferred Saudi candidate there. Djibouti had to pick a side as well and ensconced itself in the Saudi-UAE bloc, contributing to the war effort in Yemen against the Houthis, although favorability between the Gulf monarchies and Djibouti has fluctuated in recent years. Already a hub for foreign military bases, hosting Chinese, French, and Americans, even Japan has an armed presence there. This, combined with reports as well, ensured that this tiny country would play an important role in the larger geopolitical games of the region. Qatar has maintained itself in the Horn as a relatively unbiased negotiator, helping to solve border disputes and even mediating the Darfur conflict. It is able to punch far above its weight class with the help of Al Jazeera. This, coupled with the local connections it made from its earlier neutral status, helped Qatar broadcast its message in the African mainstream. While its economic ties aren't as much as Turkey or UAE, Al Jazeera is a vital asset. Qatar has won much sympathy in the Horn from countries that too feel the imbalance of the relationship and experience economic opportunism and coercion from both Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Before the blockade, Qatar imported vast amounts from Saudi Arabia, but it had to figure out new supply lines after it was cut off. Sudan and Ethiopia offered arable land that could maintain food security. Bashir was more sympathetic to the Islamist axis, so when he was deposed, what appeared to be a blow for the Turkey-Qatar alliance was also a win for the Saudi coalition. And plans made in 2017 for Turkey to develop the port of Suakin in Sudan were put in jeopardy. The clearest theater in which the two sides of the blockade are competing with each other is in Somalia. The central government, backed by Turkey and Qatar, is dealing with a legitimacy crisis. The Berbera port, which the UAE agreed to manage and expand in 2017, is located in the self-declared Republic of Somaliland, a status that the central government of Mogadishu does not accept. Turkey has also been especially active in Somalia, using it as an opportunity to brandish its credentials as an economic and humanitarian model of Sunni Muslims worldwide. Especially of note is the biggest overseas Turkish military facility in Mogadishu, with a price tag of $50 million, which it uses to help train the Somali military. Ethiopia has been the main powerhouse in the Horn of Africa. Its resources, potential, and proximity to the Gulf have encouraged investments in agriculture, infrastructure, and tourism for years, but 2018 ushered in a new era of engagement between the Gulf and Ethiopia, when Ahmed Abiy came to power. The Gulf rushed to facilitate a peace agreement between Eritrea and Ethiopia to consolidate their position in the Assab port of Eritrea. This was especially in Ethiopia's interests, since before they had to rely on Djibouti ports, which alone would not be able to handle the totality of Ethiopia's economic rise. Central to Ethiopia's plan as a regional economic hegemon is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam. This would help them on their way to being an energy exporter, but has come at the cost of severe concern by Sudan and Egypt. They worry that the completion of this dam would deprive them of the water they need from the Blue Nile and put too much power in the hands of Ethiopia. There are massive Ethiopian expatriate populations in Saudi and UAE, but Saudi Arabia has started to repatriate low-skilled Horn labor to prioritize its own citizens starting in 2017, as massive numbers of migrants started to cross over into Yemen, despite the chaos and instability there. Ethiopia is the most populous country in the Horn of Africa, and if it were to collapse or descend into civil war, which looks exceedingly possible, the numbers crossing into the Gulf would dwarf any previous ones. With an increasingly unstable Ethiopia, Abiy might look to act unilaterally on the controversial dam to rouse national sentiment, and this would put him at odds with Sudan and Egypt. Despite the flurry of recent engagement, the relationship between the Horn and the Gulf is lopsided, as Horn countries negotiate individually and are weaker in nature. Efforts at a Red Sea Forum have taken place in recent years in attempts to create a more targeted and comprehensive environment for dialogue, but the process has been marred by questions of eligibility and leadership. Egypt is seemingly the perfect bridge between Africa and Arabia for historic and geographic reasons, but they are more concerned in keeping Ethiopia subordinate and less powerful due to her power over the Nile, than bringing together the countries with a stake in the Red Sea. Egypt wants to shed its subordination to the Gulf, a position it's increasingly been in since 2013, and sees this as a prime opportunity to do so. In light of Egypt's intransigence, Saudi Arabia has taken the reins of a potential Red Sea Forum and is shaping it in its own vision. The idea of a Red Sea Forum is most definitely encouraging. One can only hope that the parties arrive at a more comprehensive idea of membership eligibility, since it is undeniable that there are countries with a direct stake in the project, even if they don't share a coast with the Red Sea, such as Ethiopia. If a special framework for dialogue and dispute resolution is inherently weighted by some against others, then the entire point is moot. The same dynamics of appealing to outside sponsors to mediate conflicts will repeat itself. Hopefully, Ethiopia can ameliorate its internal political conflicts so it can look forward and outward in a more focused way, because it is the most influential and consequential country in the Horn of Africa. In early 2021, Saudi Arabia and Qatar signed an official declaration calling for the end to the blockade and reintegration as neighbors, ostensibly bringing an end to the split, but the underlying causes of the conflict remain unaffected. With Biden beginning his administration by signaling towards Iran, releasing the Khashoggi report and removing the terrorism designation of the Houthis, Saudi Arabia feels sidelined. Rumors that Turkey is looking to intervene on the Saudis' behalf in the Yemen conflict have been swirling lately, and this could have a decisive impact on the tide of the war there, as the other recent Turkish foreign incursions in Libya and Nagorno-Karabakh have done. The outcome of the war in Yemen will be critical for the politics of the Red Sea. If Iran is able to consolidate its foothold near the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and surely Turkey will step up their economic and military maneuvering in the Horn of Africa. As long as there exists only competing, disparate lines of communication and competition, the Horn will suffer. Efforts like the Red Sea Forum should be encouraged, but a comprehensive membership policy is an important first step if we are to see stability and more balanced economic prosperity between the Gulf and its African neighbors.